It's Friday, Feedback Friday, the feedbackiest day of the week. Ha! Take 5 took to not cough and stay remotely in key. All right, remotely. I'm not saying I had perfect pitch on that. And then there's the cough. Yeah, hopefully this will be the cap of 3 solid weeks of being sick. I got the flu and a cold the week before my sister's wedding, and I wasn't quite over it when I went down there. But what am I gonna do? Miss my sister's wedding because I'm sick? No. So I'm really sick now. It's just one of those things you do, and it sucks, and you get over it, and that's life. And before we go forward, because I want to show you guys some gameplay. We are going to be talking today. I just want to show the little videos so people know what they're talking about, because I'm not going to cut away from gameplay to do this. But I'm going to talk about the Rubin report interview that happened this week, and I'm going to talk about the Thoughts of a Developer on Gamergate video that I was referenced in. I want to show that because I want to show you guys some Last Guardian gameplay. And before I do that, I have to disclose, as per an agreement with Sony Entertainment, that I was given this game. They provided it to me. They were adamant that we say this because I was given this as an influencer and not a reviewer. And they not only gave me the game, they gave me this really beautiful kind of pop-up diorama on this feather that's printed on it. I've never seen a feather that's printed on it, and some kind of little book I haven't looked at because I'm afraid it's an art book and I don't want spoilers. There have been some art books I look, it's like, that enemy wasn't as much as a surprise anymore. And because of that, I'm going to show you guys very, very early gameplay, just to let you see some of the AI features of the beast, of Treecko, who I am calling a her, because you spend a lot of time climbing around her back end, and there are no testicles. So I'm assuming Treecko is a girl. But I do want to give credit where credit's due to Sony, being above and beyond regarding disclosure. They said putting it in the comment box is not enough. They were adamant about that. And I'm like, awesome. Quite a few people, when they heard I was playing it, said, what is it? The closest I can compare this game to is Shadow of the Colossus. It's not quite the same, but it's the same in that you do a lot of climbing, because you have to climb up Treecko to use her as a ladder, and she jumps and things like that to solve the different environmental puzzles. But it also takes a long time to do any single sort of solution, because you have to sort of communicate her and coax her and cajole her. You can't command her, which some people are going to love and some people are going to hate. Sometimes it does get very frustrating, but I have 9 cats, so I know what it's like to actually herd cats. So to be able to have that experience in a video game is a real revelation for me. It's amazing how alive both these characters are. The clumsiness, the fumbliness, and the just sort of adorable factor of the little boy are amazing. It's not voiced in English, it is subtitled, but there is so little language in it. I understand why they didn't bother. It is, yes, there's an element of isolation. Yes, there is an element of sort of this reverie type thing, this dreamlike quality to the whole thing. The art direction of it looking painted is gorgeous, and the evasion-based, call it combat for lack of a better term, is really quite interesting. It's all puzzles, even the sort of action sequences. Yes, there are action sequences in it. I'm not going to tell you what they are, though, because encountering them for the first time for me was like, oh my god, what's going on? So I don't want to spoil that while I take a drink because of my throat. Gatorade, you are my friend. Let's move on. Just watch and enjoy, and we're moving on to the Rubin report. And this, I admit, I way over prepared for this interview. I thought it was gonna be a lot about the culture war in gaming, and it wasn't. He just wanted to talk about movies because he wanted a break from stuff. And This was recorded some time ago. It took a while to get up. I thought there was something technically wrong with it, which is why they weren't putting it up, but it just, some things take a while to come up. And yeah, it's not as hard-hitting as other interviews, but not everything has to be. I mean, I will cherish the experience of somebody like Dave Rubin just wanting to talk to me about movies and TV and video games. I mean, that is cool. I still manage to piss some people off, though. I am me, right? It's a ginger kid thing. We enrage for the bizarrest of reasons. And in this case, it was Grand Theft Auto. I didn't bring it up. I don't bring up Grand Theft Auto as a rule, but I am prepared to get it in every interview I do, because feminism plus Grand Theft Auto equals immediate media interest. And it's always tricky to respond. There's no right way to do it, because I don't want to come across as if Grand Theft Auto is my favorite game in the whole world, because you guys know it's not. I'm a Saints Row and Watch Dogs fan, so I can't just say, no, I have no problem with Grand Theft Auto. I mean, there are elements of it that are intensely uncomfortable for me to play. And so I'm going to be honest about that. But oh God, you can't have feminism attached to your name. And I don't know what else to call myself. But you can't do that and then criticize Grand Theft Auto in any way. And I didn't think I was being critical so much as saying what I want, and I was criticized for that as well, by saying my, me, I, all that stuff. A patron pointed out to me, saying that another commenter commented on the fact you said me, my, or I more times than any other guest. So what? Like, other guests go on there to talk about politics. We're talking about movies. And so, yes, it is much more of a personal opinion. When I talked about Mad Max, I was more like, look, I personally like Furiosa, but saying she's an ideal female character is saying that some other type of female character isn't an ideal, and that's the problem. But how can I make that point without saying I? Like, this is silly. We're talking about movies. But what happened with Grand Theft Auto is Dave posed something that I didn't... When I'm driving around in Grand Theft Auto, and, he was talking about his own experience, but he didn't catch shit for that. Whatever. But, he pulls somebody out of the car and it punches in the face and it happens to be a woman. That's not what you're talking about, right? And I felt a little like, oh man, anything I say is going to be wrong here, because if you say, no, that's not a problem, it's when did you start beating your wife? If you say, no, that's not what I'm talking about, then it's just kind of a dead question. That's not a good answer. You're supposed to try to take the question and elaborate. So what I did was I kind of pivoted and said, like, because my thought is, like, of course not. And I probably should have said, of course not. I got back to it later, but people were already outraged. But what I said was, the thing I would like from Rockstar is for them to arm the prostitutes. And people got up in arms at that, because instead of looking at what I was trying to say, aha, proof she knows nothing about games, Sarkeesian clone. They actually said that. They actually called me a Sarkeesian clone, which, when you're trying to show superior knowledge of subject, probably not the best tactic in my case. But, aha, the prostitutes there are some. And it turns out they're armed in the same rate as civilians. I have never come across a prostitute with a gun in the 3 Grand Theft Auto games I have played. I've played San Andreas, 4, and parts of 5. I couldn't finish 5. I'm going to have to go back and finish it for the Kickstarter that's coming out, because this is a topic. But I have never encountered a prostitute with a gun, ever. Now, granted, I don't go around killing prostitutes. What I will say is that saying someone is too easy to kill saying a type of character is too easy to kill, is a far cry from saying you shouldn't be able to harm them at all. That is a huge distinction between my position and the position of the feminist frequency bunch. And I don't expect Grand Theft Auto to be realistic. I do expect it to provide meaningful experiences, and the lack of meaning in that particular choice is what I kind of want to get into in the show, and I don't want to spoil it here. But one person who likes my stuff referred to the comment I made as incendiary, and I'm like, really? Because I would prefer something in a game that's incendiary. Other patrons, actual patrons, said that the appearance was a missed opportunity, and that if they didn't already follow me, they wouldn't have followed me based on that interview. And I did get this uptick in followers. I didn't even know it was out when I started getting all these people who were like, atheist and skeptic, follow me on Twitter. I'm like, what's going on? What old thing did someone find? Or who made a video about, oh God. It turned out this had come out. So there has been followings. I've met some pretty incredible people that hopefully there will be interviews in the new year or sooner of people who are they do work involving women who are highly critical of what I call corporate feminism. I'm really excited about these connections. So, you know, this is one of these things where it's I feel bad that I disappointed somebody who cares enough to donate money to me. At the same time, it was a beneficial appearance, and I'm glad I did it. And I think that we can't go into the more popular internet press or the mainstream press and act like everything is just perfect in games and gaming, and not be honest about the things we think we can do better. That's not going to solve gaming's PR problem. But what I think I did do is show that somebody can go, well, I don't really like this element. However, you know, no, I flat out said, like, female UFC fighters are fighting to have the right to punch people in the face. Now, of course, that's not my issue. And I think that balance outside of gaming is so super important. You know, I'd love to talk about the culture war in video game on another date, but I just think that there's nothing wrong with doing what we did, and hopefully I'll be able to be back on. We'll see. But I want to move on to the Gamergate Thoughts of a Developer interview that about 6 different people linked me to this. The first 2 did not tell me I was mentioned in this. And so I clicked through it, and imagine my surprise when I see a quote of mine appear in the video. It's kind of near the end. I'm like, that's my name. It's like, hey, wait, that's me. And I was like, what? What's going on? This is so strange. It's the media equivalent of, you know, when you put 2 mirrors directly facing each other, and so it sort of reflects to infinity. Or you have your OBS window on the same screen and it goes to infinity. It was that kind of feeling, like, whoa. And it was weird because I looked and said, oh, this guy's being really reasonable, and I thought he was being really fair to the Gamergate people. And this is where I start getting into trouble of, oh, she's pro Gamergate, and no, she's just trying to suck up to Gamergate, and typical, right? But I personally think that the whole Gamergate thing has been one of the most misreported stories of recent memory, other than the 2016 election in the U.S. And there's a connection there. And I was very heartened to see a developer who's done a bunch of Disney stuff, which I think is really relevant. You know, this isn't somebody who is you know, a free speech warrior. It isn't somebody who makes their money on sex and violence. It isn't somebody who is at all really even affected by this culture war in gaming. It's just somebody who knows a thing or two about game design. And then at the end, first of all, I think he actually got the core facts of Gamergate right, which is very rare, even for people within Gamergate. But he also had some really interesting, eye-opening things to say about the press for me. Because, the press, obviously, I'm not counted in his idea of the press. He'd never even heard of me. And people ask me, do you know him? It's like, no, I don't know him. I know Bill Roper from the Disney team, but I've never met Troy Levitt or Levis. I don't even know how to pronounce his last name. I feel bad. I hate that because people butcher my name. They call me Kirshner instead of Kersner. But no, I do not know this person personally, and so it was interesting. And he said right in the video he'd never even heard of me. So it's so funny that people are like, do you know him? Like, he just said he'd never heard of me. But I am glad to see a developer saying publicly what he thinks about this, and I think he gave a very nuanced, very fair opinion, sort of the difficult balancing act that developers are facing nowadays. In that, he did that whole thing of, well, what do you think of feminism? Well, it depends on what you mean by feminism. And I'm gonna steal this because it's true, because this is the rabbit hole we end up going down. What does feminism mean? And there are some people that will not be convinced that feminism is anything but the subjugation of men. And I'm sure people will freak out in the comments over that comment. Don't bother, okay? I am in the same school as Troy here about what feminism means. It just means equality of opportunity for the sexes. And not equality of outcomes, but we have a lot of lingering issues, including imposter syndrome in women, this whole lean-in issue that's still being debated. There's still work to do. And it doesn't necessarily mean that saying, that there is not even equivalency, never mind equality yet. That doesn't mean there's some sort of heavy-handed systemic oppression going on. It means something's going on. And it was refreshing to see somebody just say, if you mean equality between men and women, of course I support that. If you mean some of this other stuff that's going on, no, I don't support that. And we desperately need that sort of nuance in response from developers. It matters so much, because I think so many developers are afraid of going for that nuance, of saying, I support the general concept. I do not support some of the behavior I've seen out of that camp. And I think that that's very important, because that means it empowers people like me who also don't support those behaviors to offer a different way of going about it instead of swallowing the whole thing whole cloth. It was very eye-opening what someone from outside of sort of feminist thought thinks intersectionality means. I was kind of sad that term's become toxic as well, or it's become infected. It itself is not toxic. What's been done to it has been. But it does tie in to the my theory that I'm going to be unpacking in the crowdfunded series. There's going to be a campaign in February about how we need to sort of move on from intersectional feminism and into what I call Mosaic Feminism. That that I've been so criticized by, it matters as one piece of the puzzle, as opposed to this is what I feel, therefore this is objective truth. And if people know what a mosaic is, it's all these little tiles. Sometimes they themselves are their own picture, but they're little individual pieces that make up the complete picture. And I think that this narrowing of focus that intersectionality has brought with it needs to be broadened to, okay, that's one right answer, but there are 1,000 right answers to this question, and they're all equally valid. And I think that's something that will help a lot in our examination of games and the depiction of women and the feminine within games. You know, this is very ironic now with the stuff with me thinking Treecko is, in The Last Guardian, is female, because some people say, you know, oh, lack of gender signifiers means male. Well, in animals it doesn't, and that's why it's sort of like, wow, there goes the Miss Male character thing right there. Like, I assume this character is female because, and the reality is that when a organic body is naked, there are no lack of gender signifiers. There is something. You know, there are male parts, there are female parts, there are both. You don't get a no answer there. It's pretty identifiable when there are no clothes. And it's just interesting to me that those kind of things, you know, those are incendiary comments, like my comments about Grand Theft Auto, and I don't see them that way. It's just pointing out a fact or a lack of two facts in Treecko's case. And I think I'm extra aware of that because I just had my 3 male kittens neutered. And I mean, there was a whole thing where you oh, kitten cute, oh my, back there, that's quite a view. But yeah, like, this is a kind of humor we really need to inject into this conversation. And hopefully I'll be able, I've emailed Troy, and like, hopefully I'd love to interview him for the upcoming series. Like, this would be cool, but we'll see what happens. No matter what, it's a cool thing. I appreciate the positive response. I'll leave that there. I want to touch, because I haven't forgotten about you guys, I wanted to touch on the Rubin report thing first because people are new. But I do want to give a shout out to a commenter who commented on the thing I did about the DC crossover, and they made a comment about Felicity, and I found this really interesting because it was something I had going on in a subroutine, but this is a fair comment. And they said, when your day job is network security admin and you see here Felicity, you can understand why I'm going bald. Her job these days is to be funny, and there are funnier characters in the show. Looking at you, Ragman and Mr. Terrific. Cisco, however, does his IT stuff better and more realistically. Heck, a few of my female ICT mates also find her making their skin itch. It's hard to put the button on why, but she somehow rubs us the wrong way. I was shocked when one of them said, is her job to be attractive when she leaves the room? Yes, the lady who said that was bi. I see what they're saying there, and I realized I was sort of frog in the boiling water when it came to Felicity on Arrow, because I'm like, oh my god, a character with personality, and they do overdo her. One of the things I thought I imagined I said until you guys commented on it was the fact that when her speech was scrambled, she was quoting the Darmok episode of Star Trek. And I thought I imagined that because I just referenced it in a video, and then it was there. So I thought, nah, I can't be. And that's one of those things, like, okay, it's funny for people who get it, but it also, that's one of those you're actually breaking the reality of the scene for a joke, and I can't stand that. It's one of my comedy pet peeves because that's not her speech being garbled. That, as a Star Trek fan, and we've established she's very much a Star Trek fan, would make sense to her. So, conflicted about that. And I think that's sort of the general thing about her. I have never met an IT person that takes that much time getting ready every morning. That's part of the things that bug me about her. Cisco is wearing, he's got unstyled hair, so it's clean, it's not nasty, but it doesn't look like he spent 1,000 hours on it. and he's wearing a t-shirt with some kind of button shirt over it and jeans. That is how IT people go to work. IT people do not go to work dressed like Felicity, because you've got to crawl down under desks a lot and plug in wires, and that is very hard to do in heels and a skirt. And so, you know, it was always that sort of thing that she's coming to work to impress who? The assumption is Oliver. And Oliver's a D-bag, and that always annoyed me. And it's I can totally see how Felicity is annoying, because instead of bringing her down to, you know, we'll say 3/4 impulse power, they've constantly got her going at warp speed all the time on that show now, because she's the comic relief, but she's also the hot chick in the same body. They have not been able to develop other female characters on that show because they tend to kill them. And again, Arrow was the first show, so I don't want to be too rough on it, but I wanted to share that because I thought it was a fair point of view and kind of crystallized something that I'd felt. I was really surprised I didn't take more crap for being so rough on Arrow, because I know those fans are diehard, and it is the grimdark show, and so you get the Batman is better because he could happen, and no papa, it's Batman actually couldn't happen. A human being cannot go with that little sleep and be injured that often without, you know, serious effects. I don't care how much ninja training he's had in Nanda Parbat. I always say that wrong. It's Namba Parbat. An alien is actually more likely than Batman. Just because Batman just seems to defy all human limitations whenever possible. And he's constantly injured, but nobody has figured out, hey, Batman fell off a roof last night. It was all through the papers, and Bruce Wayne's injured today. Gee, I wonder what that's about. It's all suspension of disbelief. There is no point in trying to figure out whether a superhero is more or less realistic than another. It would be nice to see some of these characters brought down to earth a little bit in terms of their limitations. I think that's actually more heroic than what they do. But I'll do more TV just because it brought out strong opinions in people in a positive way, instead of that very negative way that sometimes happens with, you know, games like Grand Theft Auto. So I liked it. Wasn't hugely highly watched, but nothing was this week. I think partially it's time of year, partially it's that I was away last week, so there's a bit of rebuilding that needs to be done. Also, I did game content this week, which is always lower rated. But I'll stop here with You're Watching Now. Treecko playing with a barrel instead of eating it, and I thought this was just so magical. So thanks for watching. We'll see you on Monday.